1, 2, 3, let's go.
Wednesday afternoon, hoping you will tune into our show.
So all these things, they count as far as first impressions are concerned. An interesting one is facial shape of our faces. Obviously, they say that no human face is exactly symmetrical.
Right.
And I think and the way they prove that, I don't know if you've ever seen them, but sometimes when you see an article about this in a magazine or something, they show a photograph of, first of all, one half of a person's face, and then they turn that same half around and put it together, and it doesn't look like the same person, which they're showing that we're not symmetrical, that each half of our face is slightly different. And as I say, it's asymmetrical. But this apparently counts in what we judge, how we look at somebody, the shape of their face. And of course, it goes on then it leads on to attractiveness. We all have a view. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, I guess. And the question would be, well, how long does it take to find someone really attractive? Well, research says there's no set time for falling in love, that some people experience love and attraction at first sight, and sometimes a couple will say, yeah, we both felt that. Sometimes they'll say one of us did, the other one took longer, or it can take many months or longer to form that deep connection with somebody. So again, that kind of impression, when it leads to more things, is more indefinable, really. It takes a lot longer. But suffice to say, we're talking about that initial impression that we get of somebody, which may make us think, how do I ever consciously think about the impression? Not even with people necessarily you want to meet, but if you're going to the shops or whatever, doing anything, does it bother us? Do we think, I hope people think I look a nice person, or I'm looking good today, or whatever? I don't know whether we go out thinking like that, but I suppose we all have a certain standard of how we dress when we get dressed in the mornings, what we're going to wear that day, and so on, depending on where we are. What I've always found is, when I used to work for a living, not so long ago, I was working in finance as my career, really, and I often had to give talks to business people or to staff, sometimes big crowds of people. And I'm glad to say I've never, as you can probably tell, I've never had a problem with public speaking, in the sense I don't get particularly nervous, whereas some people list it as one of the big phobias, the idea of talking in public. Well, I've always been okay doing that. But equally, you do sometimes get, when you had quite a big crowd of people, you get some stage fright, you get a bit nervous, inevitably. But I always found if I was well prepared with what I was going to say, with how I looked, if I dressed for the part, nice suit, expensive shoes, throw that one in there. If I felt good, and I think people do, I think we all grow into what we are. If we're trying to be something in a certain situation, whether it's a party, whatever, we're trying to impress people, as long as we are well prepared and we look the part, I think that confidence we're talking about is there. It comes. Whereas if we go to something not properly or appropriately decked out for what we're going to, that confidence can drain away a bit, because you think, I'm the only one with this on, or doing that, or not looking very smart, overdressed or underdressed. So again, all these things count as to the impression we give to other people. And I think in conclusion, the only other part of this I would throw in is that, apart from the things that, we might make a judgment on people very quickly and when we hear them and so on, apart from that, I think there's such a thing as gut feeling, which is not so easy to measure or research, is it? I do think, as I have experienced it sometimes, that you can sometimes.
The leader of our gang will make the show go with a bang and fund the aim of everything Custis. And fund the aim of everything Custis.
feel almost an immediate connection with somebody who you meet, even if it's somebody, you might bump into them in a shop like that woman this morning. And I'm not saying that was an example of this, but there are times occasionally where you meet someone, you bump into someone, and you feel a connection which you can't really define, but it's there. It's almost like, to be romantic about it, I suppose it could be like a meeting of souls, that almost soulmates, that maybe you've been in a life before this, in another life, that you've met before. Sometimes we do get that feeling we've met somebody before. And I'm going off at a bit of a tangent here, but I'm just saying, some spiritualists, mediums, think that we have an aura, a colour around us, which sometimes we can't see it, but we can perceive it, even if we don't realise that. Whereas a medium, spiritualist, can say they can tell you what your aura is, the colour of it, and what it might say about your character. And maybe we do all give off things that we're not aware of, a bit like a magnetic field or something like that. And maybe we got these perceptive talents as yet really unused in the brain. Maybe maybe that's part of it. But so what I think is that with a first impression, all the things we've talked about are in there, but also there's often that sixth sense, that perception of something which either draws you to that person or not. That's how I approach it. I think be prepared for what you're doing, where you're going to, the situation, be appropriate, and make a good first impression. And I think it's good that we sometimes think about that.
Yeah.
So there we are.
So while you was talking, you touched on a point, and it just made me remember something that I still question about myself. And it might be about, a lot of other people might experience it as well. And it's the fact that you could have two people that would naturally not make a good first impression, and you would be drawn to one but not the other. And that puzzles me. And I'll give you an example. So there's two artists that I've been following their music for years, not following actively, but when they release a new music, I'd have a listen and say, all right, this is good. And they're quite famous. So one of them is Jay-Z and the other one is Kanye West. Right. So now Jay-Z, I can't stand. And I know I'm saying this publicly, but I don't hate him. But it's just, there's something about his arrogance that I can't stand. But then there's Kanye West, who is more arrogant, and I'm drawn to it. So I'm.
It's weird, isn't it? Yeah.
I know, and I'm questioning myself. A lot of people, if you sort of did like a public poll or a poll, more people would definitely tell you that Kanye West is much more arrogant than Jay-Z, for instance. But then, it's just, I just know that these two people are slightly the same in character. But then one of them I like, despite their flaws, despite and then the other one I'm thinking, well, so it is strange, isn't it? It is strange.
Yeah, I think this touches on what I've just been saying, really, about this sort of gut feeling. And sometimes I said about confidence not spilling over into arrogance, but sometimes we can we like someone, we find someone attractive if there is a bit of arrogance there. And I think a case in point, going to football, for example, someone like Jose Mourinho,
right,
who managed Chelsea and Man United, he could be quite an arrogant character, but I think he was incredibly popular and liked by the football fraternity and even people outside of the football fraternity. He would say, "I'm the special one," and things that only an arrogant, egotist would say. But he was very, very likable to millions of people. And so I take your point that it doesn't surprise me that you can say someone, you didn't particularly like, but they weren't arrogant. Someone you do, and they were arrogant. So it shows all these things come into the what makes a first impression, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And it's just strange that, it sort of happens with mothers as well. So you would see a mother that has maybe two boys, and then there's the really quiet one that everybody likes, and then there's the other one that's a bit mischievous, and that's perhaps one that the mother likes, and you think, well, this is the one that you should like. You know. It's sort of puzzles.
That's true.
Yeah, it sort of puzzles
especially
me
with us.
Second,
with us two, because we're brothers from another mother, aren't we?
I know.
So it fits perfectly, doesn't it?
I must say, our mother likes me better.
No, actually, we've got different mothers. Just listen to the words of the song. Brother from another mother.
Yeah, it's human nature is it's very unique when you study or when you analyze it and really delve into it. And it is a psychology of things at the end of the day, isn't it? Where you have two different opinions, but they still find a way to agree on something. Yeah. No, just touching on something you've touched on earlier, just revisiting it a bit. Like when you meet somebody for the first time, and you have that gut feeling that this person is perhaps not or got a shady character or a shady side, and then they speak. And then you think, right, okay, so, you then think you form an opinion of what you think they are like or what their personality is like. And then perhaps they say something else. And then you think, oh, it's not that much of a bad person. No, it's not a bad person. It's just being misunderstood, if that makes sense. You could look at somebody, you think this person's a nice person, but I think he might be misunderstood by people because of perhaps the way that he comes across or she comes across. You might think, well, hang on a minute. I think you would have to get to know him to be able to like him. That sort of thing. And it's a shame, really, because some people don't have that patience, do they? They just think, well, I don't like him because, first time I met him, this is what happened. And then, you think, well, do you really know him? Do we really know people before we form an opinion of who they are or what they are or the sort of personality that they might possess? Which is why this topic is a very, very interesting one indeed. I'm glad that you...
And it's why you said, do we really know somebody? Yeah. And this is where, going back to Dr. Gregory House, everybody lies. We have to somehow factor in the fact that do we ever really... I mean, when two people start dating and going out together, they say it takes, researchers say, it takes 3 or 4 months before the initial layer of what we're prepared to let somebody see of our real self start to come away a bit. So it takes 3 or 4 months. So the first 3 or 4 months, we're seeing somebody who is not ultimately the finished article. That's not the ultimate person. So, and gradually thereafter, people get to know each other, maybe take a bit for granted sometimes, and all that goes into developing a relationship. But people often say, do we ever really get to know somebody else? And the other thing to that is that do we ever really get to know ourselves? It's only when, in my experience in my life, that when it sounds a bit cliche, but when you step outside that comfort zone, that's where life begins.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, so this is all we've got time for. Very interesting topic today, first impressions. So feel free to let us know what your first impressions are of us.
Dangerous.
Dangerous, yeah. Right, so do you want to do the conclusion, bruv, please?
Yeah, well, that was quite a good chat we had there, Cuz. I thought it touches on a number of interesting topics, so that was good. Hopefully our listeners and viewers enjoyed it. But anyway, today we've been the Alien Spaceship, and I've been Trevor Gear, and I call him Cuz.
And I've been Emmy Hikins, and he calls me bruv. So join us again next time. It's goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Right.
Yeah, it's
so,
good.
Yeah, I know.
Of our gang will make the show go with a bang and fund the aim of everything Custis and fund the aim of everything Custis.